Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to really get into the story of one person and their impact on history.
Oh, and it's a good one.
It is Lady Olive Bailey and her connection to Leeds Castle in England.
Leeds Castle.
Yeah. And our source today, the Love to Visit London newsletter, it really paints this picture of Leeds Castle in the 1930s.
Oh, wow.
Lavish gatherings, parties, everyone who's anyone. Statesmen, European royalty, even Hollywood stars.
And this newsletter claims that Lady Olive was the driving force behind saving it. It makes you wonder, right?
It really does,
Yeah.
saving this magnificent place. So who was she?
Well, she wasn't your typical, aristocrat, just kind of throwing parties.
Yeah.
She actually bought Leeds Castle back in the 1920s.
Wow,
A
yeah.
lot of these grand estates were, facing financial ruin at the time, so it makes you think.
Yeah. It's almost like she was making a choice, right,
Yeah.
to invest in this piece of history
Exactly.
instead of just, luxury.
It seems very deliberate, doesn't it? And if
Yeah.
you look into her family background, it gets even more interesting.
Yeah, lay it on me.
She inherited a pretty big fortune from her father, Sir Robert Borden.
Sir Robert Borden. That name rings a bell.
Well, he was the Prime Minister of Canada during World War I.
Oh, wow. The Prime Minister of Canada. Okay, so not just any family.
Not just wealth. She inherited a sense of responsibility, I think, a sense of leadership.
Okay, so it's starting to make sense now why she would take on something so monumental,
Yeah.
restoring this castle to its former glory.
Yeah, and from what I've read, she really dove in head first.
It's almost like she was preserving a way of life. Right. A symbol of England's heritage.
Yeah, more than just bricks and mortar.
And speaking of the restoration, the newsletter talks about her exquisite taste.
And meticulous attention to detail.
Yeah, what can you tell us about her approach to this, revitalizing this castle?
Imagine you're stepping back in time to the 1930s. Okay, so you've got these interiors transformed under her guidance. She brought in, the finest craftsmen, artisans, meticulous restorations of these original features,
Wow,
but also incorporating modern comforts
I see.
and her personal style.
Uh-huh.
So you can picture these opulent fabrics, antique furniture, breathtaking artwork, all carefully curated.
So she wasn't creating a museum.
No, not at all. It was a living, breathing testament to the castle's history.
It really sounds like she had this vision. She didn't want it to be a relic of the past.
You're right.
She wanted it to be a vibrant space, enjoyed by everybody.
And that's where I think her idea for the Leeds Castle Foundation comes in.
Ah, the foundation. The newsletter mentioned it, but I'm
Yeah.
really curious to dive deeper into that. It seems like she was thinking long-term here about securing its future.
Yeah, the foundation was a strategic move to protect the castle for generations.
Wow.
This wasn't about, just passing on a property. It was a legacy.
Mm.
She wanted to make sure that this castle could thrive, be accessible to the public long after she was gone.
It's incredible. And you can see how that vision continues to shape the experience of people visiting Leeds Castle today.
It really is. It's a real testament to what one person can do to preserve history.
And it makes me think, if you had the opportunity to preserve a piece of history, what would it be? Why? Let's pause here for a moment. When we come back, we'll delve into that thought.
That is a great question. And there are so many pieces of history out there that I think are worth saving. But we were talking about Lady Olive. You said something interesting before the break about how she was preserving a way of life.
Well, yeah, think about it. The 1920s and 30s were a time of huge change, especially for the British aristocracy.
Right. Their world was being turned upside down.
Exactly.
World War I, dramatically changed everything. The social landscape, the economics.
Yeah.
And these grand estates like Leeds Castle, all of a sudden they had these heavy taxes. The costs were enormous.
It was just too much for a lot of families to handle.
Yeah. They just couldn't keep up. So a lot of them had to sell their ancestral homes or let them fall apart. But not Lady Olive.
She was going against the grain.
Yeah, she was doubling down on this way of life. And I think that says a lot about her personality. This is a woman who could have just lived a life of leisure. She inherited this fortune.
Right.
But she chose this huge responsibility instead.
I wonder if all those challenges, like the financial burden, maybe even society changing around her, maybe that's what made her even more passionate about it.
It's possible, right?
Like she was proving a point that these estates still had a place in the modern world.
Yeah, it wasn't just about looking back. It was about making it relevant for the future.
Mm.
And I think her vision for the Leeds Castle Foundation, that was key.
Right, because she was taking it out of the hands of one family's fortune.
Exactly. By establishing this foundation, she made sure that no matter what happened, economically or what happened within her family, it would be protected.
Wow, that's really smart.
It's brilliant. And it shows that she really understood business and philanthropy. It wasn't just sentimentality.
She was a strategist, thinking way ahead.
Yeah, she was. Now, the newsletter also talks about a few other places in Southwark. Borough Market, the Southwark Cathedral, even the Tate Modern. And it seems like they were trying to highlight how Southwark blends history and culture with modern attractions. I wonder if there's a connection there with Lady Olive's vision for Leeds Castle.
That's a good point. I think there are definitely some parallels there.
Just like Southwark, they've got these historical roots, but a modern identity.
Yeah.
And Lady Olive, she wanted Leeds Castle to be a place where the past could exist with the present.
Right, and she was renovating the castle, right?
Yeah.
Adding those modern comforts, but at the same time, keeping all those historic characteristics.
She knew you can't just freeze something in time.
You have to keep it relevant, keep people engaged.
That's a good lesson, don't you think? And not just for preserving history, but for life in general.
Things are always changing, so you have to adapt to thrive. So maybe history isn't something that's just stuck in the past.
Right.
Maybe it's something that we can build on to create an exciting future.
I love that. Now, I think it's time we explore some of those Southwark attractions that we talked about earlier. What do you think? So, Borough Market, huh?
Yeah, it really caught my attention. This place sounds incredible. And the newsletter actually dives into its history a bit. It says it's been a trading hub for over 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
Yeah, can you imagine? That's just amazing to me, that kind of history.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? All those people over 1,000 years coming together in the same place to trade and share food. It says something about us, our need to connect.
It really does. And from the market to something a little more peaceful, Southwark Cathedral. We talk about the architecture, stunning. And these tranquil gardens. A real oasis in the middle of the city, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. The architecture is amazing. It's got all these different styles because it's been built and rebuilt over centuries. So you can really see the evolution of architecture just by walking around. And yeah, the gardens, they're perfect for just getting away from it all. Sitting and thinking, surrounded by history and nature. It's pretty special.
Now, I'll be honest, contemporary art, it's not really my thing, but even I'm a little intrigued by this Tate Modern.
What is it about it?
Well, they describe it as a world-class museum, but it's in a former power station.
Yeah.
That just seems so cool, like this mix of industrial and then cutting-edge art.
It's definitely unique. It's a great example of what they call adaptive reuse.
Taking something old and making it new again.
Exactly. And it works really well. That industrial setting, it actually makes the art more powerful, more interesting. It makes you think about the past and the present at the same time.
It seems like all these places in Southwark, the market, the cathedral, the Tate Modern, they all have this in common. Respect for the past, but also really embracing the present and even looking ahead.
Yeah, they're not stuck in the past, are they?
It reminds me of Lady Olive Baillie.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, she wanted to preserve the history of Leeds Castle, but make it relevant. Just like Southwark is mixing the old with the new. She understood that just saving old things isn't enough. You have to make them meaningful for people today.
It's a great lesson. And it goes beyond just places, doesn't it?
It's about our lives. Understanding where we come from, but still growing and adapting as the world changes.
Finding that balance, honoring tradition, but being open to new ideas.
Well, this has been quite a journey. We've learned so much about Lady Olive Baillie, her vision for Leeds Castle, and this incredible area, Southwark. It's amazing what one person can do and how history can inspire us.
It really is.
So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one last thought. We talked about it before, but it's worth asking again. What piece of history is important to you? And what would you do to make sure it's around for future generations? Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time.